Hi everyone, welcome to the channel. I have a very special guest here today. Joined with me is Vanessa Prasad, who plays Teen Jen on season 3 of Yellowjackets. Vanessa, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much for inviting me. I'm excited to be here.
After some technical difficulties, we are here.
So sorry.
No, 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 don't worry
Yeah.
about it.
For those of you who don't know, I'm here 15 minutes late because I had technical
No, no,
like a
no.
boomer. So Caitlin has been very patient.
Um, yeah, so let's jump into it. You're a new face on the show, which is so exciting. Can you talk about how you booked the role and got to be Jen and, give the character wilderness plastic surgery, as you called it?
Yeah, plastic surgery in the wilderness, absolutely. Yeah, no, so it kind of came across like any other audition would, where usually, our agent sends us the taping request, and because I had already watched the show, I saw it come across my email, and I was like, oh, that's super weird because there aren't usually a lot of opportunities for auditions in this show. I had actually auditioned once for season 2 a while back because I'm pretty sure it was like one of Callie's friends or
Oh,
something
okay.
in a bar, or maybe that was season 1. I can't remember. It's when I think it was when you know
The
uh
detective?
yes, thank you,
Yes.
thank you. So it was one of those when Callie was like kind of trying to like trap him a little bit.
Hmm.
Her friend there, and I didn't get it at that time, and I was so devastated because I loved the show so much. But I was like, whatever, it's fine, let it go. But what's so great is that if I had gotten that role, I would not have gotten Jen.
No.
So it's crazy. But yeah, so I got the taping request, and because I watched the show already, I saw when I was reading the sides, which is the audition material, like the lines. Um, I was reading them and I was like, 100% this scene already exists. Like I've watched this scene before. I know exactly who this is and what this scene was. And so yeah, I mean that helped a little bit. I shot it. My boyfriend and I, because we knew that I loved the show and we knew objectively, as you all know, Maya and I look very similar to each
Hmm.
other. It's a fact. And so Cole, my boyfriend, joked and he was like, listen, I'm gonna be honest with you. If you don't book this, you should just wrap it up. You should just quit acting altogether. Which I was like completely on his side. I was like, yeah, dude, like if this doesn't happen, that will like devastate me for
All
the
the
rest of
cards are there, like it's meant to be.
exactly. So yeah, my heart was definitely attached to it. But no, I taped it and I found out within a few days. I found out when I was at my part-time job and I was alone in the store that I worked at, which also never happens. I'm like never alone there. There's always people there. Um and yeah, and then I found out and then I just started crying.
A reasonable reaction, I mean. Great show,
I
great part.
I think so. It felt reasonable.
Yeah. Do you remember what scene you auditioned with, if you could share that? Or
Yeah. So in season 2, it was honestly one of the only scenes that we got with Jen and Melissa. It was and Crystal actually. So we're reading through the magazines. And when Crystal starts like humming and singing, and
uh,
then Jen basically tells her to shut the fuck up.
yeah.
That yeah, it was that one. So that's
Okay.
why I watched it and I was like, I know exactly what this is. But
Yeah.
that was tricky too though, because I obviously like you want to play it the way that you would play it, and you don't want to replicate Maya's performance at all. So there was that in the back of my head too, where I was like, okay, it needs to be
Hmm.
like a smooth transition, but it can't be identical, obviously. So
Hmm.
yeah.
Cool. And based on like your social media posts, I figured that you were a fan of the show because, like I said, the wilderness plastic surgery, Jen, no last name. So you seem very in
Yeah,
touch with the fandom, which is really cool.
I try.
Did you have
With
a favorite character like when you were watching, and maybe like a favorite scene if you want to share?
yeah, Natalie. Natalie is my
Natalie.
favorite character. I love her. I just think her character is amazing. I think Sophie Thatcher is amazing. Um, yeah, I mean, there are so many moments, especially if your favorite is Natalie, like you can go across the entire show and choose a million. But there is a soft spot that I have for Walter too, because I love
Uh-huh.
Lord of the Rings so much. So there is that soft part of me where I'm like, I just because I love Elijah Wood so
Hmm.
much. So whenever I see him, I'm like, but yeah, I love everybody, honestly. So many good characters. So many
Yeah,
good characters.
which we will get to further in. Um, yeah, so what was it like joining the cast this season? Like, you were a fan, so now like they're your coworkers, and that's kind of crazy. And
Period.
everyone just seems like the kindest people ever. So, I'm sure it was great coming into that environment.
I'm really happy you see that too, like from the outside, because that's what I saw as well. I was so incredibly nervous when I came in because I just wanted to, I didn't want to be like that person where it's like I come in and I like the show and then it's like she's new to the cast. Like I totally objectively knew what that would look like. And I wanted to honor the fact that, I wanted to honor all of Maya's work from season two. And I fully was not coming in being like it was already nerve-wracking to come into the show as a newbie, let alone coming in and having to fill somebody else's shoes that did such a good job and already has a following of people that love her. So that made me nervous. And then, of course, like you said, it was the social aspect of coming in and being like, okay, how's everyone going to be? Um, but everybody was really great. I was incredibly nervous the night before I met everybody. Um, but then it ended up working out. It was okay. I survived. Jenna really took me under her wing and Sammy and Nia and because also Nia and Jenna they understood what it was like being the new people coming into the cast. So they were so awesome. And I mean everyone was really great. But yeah, those three were really like the heavy even Alexa and Kevin, like they were awesome. So it wasn't so bad. But it
Yeah.
fucking terrified me when I was coming onto it.
Yeah, I bet like everyone's such powerhouses and
They
yeah,
are.
but obviously you booked the role, so you
Thank
the
you.
talent's there, you know what I mean? Like,
I appreciate
yeah.
that because the imposter syndrome went crazy.
Yeah, I can only imagine.
That's to be honest.
Yeah. And like you said, like me kind of seeing it from the outside, I mean, I was fortunate enough to go to the premiere and everything. So like just being able to meet people and being able to meet them and to verify that they are as kind as they seem, you know, and especially like with you, like you were our first interaction of the night and like the fact that you came up to us like definitely helped us feel a little bit better.
Oh, I'm
Um
so happy to hear
because like we
that.
were like we were like, what are we doing? Like how did we even get here? And then you came up to us and we were like, hey.
And you know what, Caitlin? I felt exactly the same way that for me. I was like, what did I do to get here? And like, I feel like I know nobody. And it was also my very first premiere too.
That's
So
huge.
we're in the same boat. I I was I was in the I was in that like milling about space of like having
Hmm.
no idea what I'm supposed to do. So when I saw you guys too, I was like, oh hell yeah. Like I know. But
That's great.
I was still adjusting to like figuring out who, the major content creators and stuff of Yellowjackets were. So it was like my first time kind of putting faces to names and I was like, oh, okay, this makes sense. Like you're Benji, you're Caitlin. Okay, cool. So yeah, it was nerve-wracking for me too. I'm so happy that it helped a little bit with you guys too.
Thank you. Thank you. So getting back to, I guess, like that mindset of being at the premiere, how has the fan reaction to this season and your character kind of lined up with what you expected, or maybe not?
Um, oh God, that's a really good question because I kind of went in with no expectations, besides the fact that I knew people were not going to be thrilled about Maya, like getting, like her leaving for other opportunities. I knew everybody would understand and be very cool about that. But then having to come in as a recast, I was like, okay, I know that when I come in, people are going to be like a little bit extra harsh on me,
Mm.
because of that reason. And I just kind of mentally prepared myself and I was like, I get it. Like I get it from the perspective of someone who has watched shows like myself and then seen a recast. It can be very jarring. And I understood that that would be the case. And so I understood that. But as far as Jen's characterization, I didn't know how people would receive her. Everything was so new and they were getting this characterization that they weren't really used to as an audience. And so that was more like up in the air. I had no idea how you guys would really perceive her. I mean, I hoped for the best, but at the end of the day, like even whether you guys love or hate Jen, it's out of my hands. Like once I do the work, it belongs to you guys. And so whether you guys love her or hate her, I'm just like, I'm just I'm just doing my job.
Yeah, exactly.
That's like
At the end of the day, everyone's doing their job.
well, exactly, right? I was like, it's none of my working as, an actor and playing Jen, I understand everything and I
Hmm.
love her and all of that, but it's not your guys's, you guys don't need to do that.
Hmm.
once you play a character and you pass it off into the ethers, it's like, it's your guys's.
Hmm.
So I just kind of went in with no expectations, but yeah.
Yeah. I mean, for the record, I do not hate Jen. So,
Thank you.
yes, yes,
We're
yes.
not for sure.
Yes.
I appreciate that.
Um, yeah, so like you said, that Jen kind of was like a background character in seasons one and two, and now you've kind of come into season three, you're the hunter. What was it like crafting her, going off of what was established in season one and two, talking with Maya, maybe talking with Jenna, the characters, the people that kind of had a part in shaping who she is before you came on.
Totally. Well, yeah, I mean, it was really fun because, when I had officially known that I had booked it, I went back and watched seasons one and two all over again, just to kind of like refresh my mind with it. I went straight to Jenna first because I was like, at the end of the day, you are the number one connection that Jen had in season two. So I want to know what you guys had prepared because basically, like, she's really good friends with Maya, and she had basically said that Maya said to just kind of like make it my own and do my thing with it, which I really appreciated
Mhm.
that too, coming from her. And yeah, and so I just kind of watched it all back and I was like, here's what we know about Jen, here's what I have. And now let's just see where Barton, Ashley, and Jonathan want to take it because they have a specific vision in mind for Jen that is expanded upon from where Maya was. But then you also have to keep in mind the practical perspective where they also don't know who I am and they don't know how I am as an actor. So I am curious to know if there was a difference at
Mhm.
all between like I know what they eventually wanted Jen to be, but I'm so curious because they were kind of testing me out at the beginning
Mhm.
too, which I know to be true. Like I talked about it with Ashley, and I know that to be true, and that's completely fair.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, so it was just kind of like I was learning at the same time that you guys were learning, and there wasn't like an extensive amount of stuff that I could go off of, but there
Mhm.
was enough. There was enough.
Yeah. And kind of going off of that, like, do you have any like headcanons for your own character that kind of help you figure out who she is? Because, you also have the material that you're given, but also because there's not as much, you have to kind of make decisions for yourself.
Exactly. I mean, the only thing, well, there were a couple things that I could take from the previous seasons, one of which I knew that Melissa and Jen, they weren't really people who had a lot of power. They didn't really have a lot of skin in the game, as far as making major decisions in the group. So, I mean, I understood why there was this kind of, for lack of a better term, bitchiness
Oh yeah.
between the two of them because it was like, and honestly, even Akila, where and Mari, where, you're not one of the head honchos of this group that are making all the decisions. To be honest with you, like, let's say hypothetically, we're going back to the circumstances of season two. Imagine if Jen just kind of spoke up and was like, actually, I think that we should do this. Nobody would fucking care. Nobody would listen to her. And I think that she knew that her, Melissa, and the rest of them, as you guys know from the perspective of an audience member, there's very clearly two different tiers
Hmm.
of power in this dynamic,
For
right?
sure.
So I knew going into Jen, I was like, okay, here are these two people, Jen and Melissa specifically, that they kind of don't even really have a desire for power. And I feel like that's a big difference that they have in comparison to some of the other characters. And I don't think a desire for power is totally a horrible thing. I don't think that that's a bad thing about any of like the leaders in our group. I think leadership is very important and it's
Hmm.
quite frankly necessary. But it was almost like sort of like a throw your hands up in the air situation of like, what the fuck am I gonna do? I have no power here. And that can be frustrating too. Like in the scene where they're reading the magazines. And funnily enough, it's Melissa that shows interest in the other group, being like, I wonder what they're talking about.
Hmm.
And then Jen just says, like, they're dumb jock boyfriends, like gods of the earth or whatever. Like, I don't care. I don't
Hmm.
give a fuck. And I think that's genuinely true. I think it was like I know that I'm not going to have any power in the situation, so I'm just hands off and I don't care. I have
Hmm.
my friends, whatever, right? Until
Hmm.
things start to.
Yeah, because then you have the hunter, you're getting into Natalie's
Yeah,
hut, and
totally. So
then
you
Melissa
start to
leaves
have
her,
Mhm. Yeah.
which
So you
we're gonna
start
talk
to have
about.
like some like reason to be involved in the group, which I think makes a huge difference. Think
Mhm.
about it like when you're a kid or something and you throw up these defense mechanisms when you don't have friends and you don't have like a group so that you're like, oh, I'm fine. I can just do things on my own. It's not a big deal. But then when you do start to get included, it's like, you know what, actually this feels pretty good.
Yeah. I think that
So
can explain a lot of Jen's actions, like shoving Natalie, voting in the trial, all those things.
totally. Absolutely.
Yeah. So you're talking about Jen and Melissa. Let's talk about it. Genlissa. First off, thoughts on Genlissa. I know,
I love them.
yeah, I love them too. They were
They're my
divorced, now
favorite.
they're back.
Yes. Yes, they are. Yes, they
And I
are.
did see that you said in an interview that you and Jenna established that Jenna and Melissa didn't really come become close until after the plane
Mhm.
crash. And
Yeah.
that's something that I thought was interesting because in their that little scene where they talk about like their McDonald's orders, like
Yeah.
that seems so like just the vibe kind of felt like they were just best friends from the start, like attached from the hip in high
Yeah.
school.
I love that little
So
scene.
yeah, I do too. And I'm just like, man, I wish we could see them, post rescue in that McDonald's.
I
But what were the reasons that you came up with for why these two characters might have become closer after the plane crash as opposed to at home?
Yeah, well, I mean, it's funny because that was technically I didn't build that on my own. That was between Maya and Jenna.
Hmm.
So basically, I had asked Jenna, "Hey, I know that this is like, a kind of broad question, and if you don't have the answers to it, totally cool. But like, was there anything particularly specific that you want me to know about the relationship that you and Maya created between Jen and Melissa. Like any circumstances that you can give me that would also help and be a better transition for you as well. And one of the things was that, they wanted to be malleable based off of, what the showrunners wanted for them. But at the end of the day, their big thing is that they, A, can lean on each other because they're an equal playing field
Hmm.
and that they become friends more after the crash. There was still, I mean, they're on a soccer team, right? Like that to a certain degree, like of course there's like a base level friendship. But it wasn't until these crazy circumstances were thrown their way and this bizarre almost government was being created that they started to really appreciate each other's presence and
Hmm.
of like, I have someone who understands the position that I'm in right now and it and then as time goes on you start to realize like actually it's there's more there to be friends. I'm having a trouble articulating it, but it's like there's more reason than just practical reasons. We're friends for many other reasons as well.
Yeah.
Just we kind of learned that as time went on, which I think was really sweet.
Yeah. I feel like a lot of times, sometimes friendships form that way of like it's like circumstantial, but then you kind of trauma bond and you're like, oh, like we're
Yeah,
actually pretty
exactly.
close.
Totally. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah. Let's see. More about Melissa. She seemed, at least in the episode where Nat kills Coach Ben and the whole circle, she seems to be a parrot of Melissa then, because Melissa says shut the
Uh-huh.
fuck up. Then Jen goes, yeah, shut the fuck up. And pushes her. And I remember watching that, I was like, all right, hold on, Jen. Like,
Yeah.
what are we
Whoa,
doing?
whoa. Yeah, I get that.
So can you talk about like where that comes from for Jen as a character?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, ultimately, it just comes from the fact that, like, okay, so going back to kind of what we were talking about with the two hierarchies of leadership and power within this group, Melissa was her comfort person. They were equals. And then all of a sudden, it's like, because I truly believe and kind of built that, to be honest with you, as fun as it is as a concept to be like, Melissa was like talking to Jen, being like, I think I like Shauna. Like I do see merit in that, and I think that that's hilarious. But I actually think that the Shauna thing blindsided
Really?
Jen. I don't think she did really see that coming, just based off of what I know and what I saw. I think that it was a shock because Melissa has always been on like an equal understanding of how we view the group. And then all of a sudden I'm seeing this happen as Jen, and I'm like, what the fuck? Like, what
Hmm.
is happening? This kind of disrupted the peace. We used to be here for each other and then quite content in just being with each other. And now my friend is wanting to branch out, and I want to be respectful of that and supportive because she is my person that I trust above anybody else. At the end of the day, I trust her. And now she trusts Shauna,
Hmm.
somebody that Jen wasn't like. I mean, obviously, like given the circumstances of season two, like Shauna goes through unimaginable
Hmm.
things. And so, of course, like Jen isn't like an evil person. Like, of course, you
Yeah.
can have empathy for this person, but it's just they were never close. And then so seeing Jen's best friend start to go with Shauna all of a sudden, it's like, okay. And then it leads into moments where you're gonna see like a battle with Jen, within herself of being like, okay, so if she's my one person that I really trust and she's my person here, I want to stick with her because if I don't have Melissa, like yes, there's Mari and Akila, but like Jen is kind of left behind and is alone.
Yeah.
She was her comfort person in these like horrible, horrible situations, and it's like, okay, so then what is Jen supposed to do? So it starts to become like a morality issue where it's like, okay, I don't really agree with all of these things, but A, I want to be with Melissa. B, Shauna fucking terrifies me.
Hmm.
Um, and now I have to kind of prove my loyalty to Melissa and Shauna. And that's where you get these situations where she's pushing Natalie. It was such like a pathetic and juvenile thing that we're watching. It's like the classic playground type of
Yeah.
behavior where someone will do this and you want to be accepted and so you do that as well. But unfortunately in the situation like the wilderness and in Yellowjackets, sometimes it really is that simple. But I'm not sure if you saw that. I know you said that you kind of watched some of the other interviews I did, but it is really sad because, in reality, and here's the thing, like there's only so much that these poor directors and editors can
Yeah.
include in these episodes. Like at the end of the day, you have to give them some grace because there's so much going on, right? So if they have to take stuff out, it, it is what it is, and that's hard, but it happens, right? And so there was that scene where, Jen pushes her, but Jen pushes Nat and then actually in the script looks right to Shauna and Melissa for approval, being like, look at what I did. And just
Yeah.
for them to not look at her at all.
Oh my
And
God.
the regret that follows that. Because Nat has never been Jen's enemy, ever.
No. She helped her learn how to hunt.
Exactly. Exactly. So and even if you guys really watch the trial scene too, Natalie knows that Jen is being pressured.
Oh yeah. Hmm.
You
I think
see it.
everybody knows.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right. So it's like Natalie is looking directly at me
Hmm.
as Jen, being like, okay, we are gonna vote one more time. I
Hmm.
can see that you don't want to do this.
Yeah.
And there is that relationship between Nat and Jen, where when Jen ultimately decides to vote guilty, she's looking at Nat like, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I'm kind of stuck between a rock and a hard place here.
Yeah. Her
And
devotion to Melissa outweighs her need to be moral and all that. And that's
yeah,
it's tricky. It's a tricky spot, like you said.
it is because how far has morality gotten these girls?
Yeah.
Not very
Not.
far.
Mm-mm.
And she knows that. And so, yeah, I mean, obviously, like the push is so frustrating, and I get it, but there are reasons, as frustrating as those reasons might be.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I get it. I get why
Ugh.
people were frustrated with it because I
Yeah.
was frustrated with it too.
Yeah, and like you said, the weighted scene, yeah, I did hear about that, and I'm so glad that you mentioned it. Because that's why I love like these interviews like this because we get to see these behind the scenes that we don't necessarily get to see, but helps us understand the character more. And Sammy was
Absolutely.
talking about it too, and I talked when I
Yeah.
spoke to her about how there's just so many levels of approval, writers, directors, like the studio, things get cut for
Totally.
sometimes no reason, you know.
Yeah, or like no reason from an outside perspective,
Hmm.
but plenty of reasons for them. Like you have to realize these poor people are like in the editing room looking at all these different
Exactly.
shots and all these things and trying to insert all of these beats. But ultimately too, like I'm not so I'm having trouble saying this, but like I came into Yellow Jackets knowing that Jen is not the lead of this show. You know what
Yeah,
I'm
yeah,
saying?
I
Like,
gotcha.
she's a supporting character, a strong supporting character that has a lot to bring. But you have to keep in mind that, like, these editors and directors, they, on some level, have to prioritize the heavy hitters of this storyline who are really guiding this in a specific direction. As much as I would love for them to insert everything that, we worked on
Hmm.
for Jen and all of that. From my logical standpoint, I'm not upset about it. I get it. It's not personal. It's just
Hmm.
you got to do what you got to do, right?
Yeah. Hmm. Well, that's what we're here talking about. The
Exactly.
things we might miss, you know?
Totally.
Can you talk about the scene of when Jen heals Melissa? Well, she doesn't really heal her. When she pushes the arrow through her.
I
I
would
have it in
love
my notes as
it.
Jen healing Melissa, and that's kind of not what happened. But
Yeah.
I thought it was really funny too that when they go to find Kodiak and Travis and Akila, Jen's like, Melissa, you shouldn't go. And Melissa's like, no, I'm fine. Like, leave me alone. So it's nice seeing that someone does care for Melissa, like even if her own girlfriend doesn't, Jen still
Yeah.
always has her back.
Yeah,
Yeah, so could
exactly.
you talk about filming that scene like practically with the blood and everything? Because I saw like one of the behind the scenes videos where, they showed a little bit, so I wanted to know your perspective.
Absolutely. It was so much fun. Because I had never dealt with anything like that with special effects, and I just thought it was fascinating and like very Yellow Jackets. I would never have likely had the opportunity to do anything like that on any other show. And so I was just so excited. And I was also excited because, these scripts are coming in slowly, and Jenna and I read that scene and we were like, "Oh, hell yeah." We were like, finally we get something where there's a turning there's a turning point where Jen gets to show her loyalty to Melissa, and Melissa has a bit of a wake-up call. Yes, she does have her feelings towards Shauna, not taking away from that. You guys saw that with their conversation in their hut after.
Hmm.
But now Melissa is seeing again the people that are truly gonna ride for her. And that is Jen at the end of the day. So A, we were happy about having that opportunity to finally show that. And B, it was just from a practical standpoint, it was a blast. It was so fun. There were so many different angles of what we were working with. There was so Jenna had like a plastic kind of rig that she had under her shirt, right? Just obviously on the opposite side than what you guys see from like me taking down her shirt. Um, but in this plastic rig, there's like there were a few different attachments. So one of the attachments was like an actual like arrow, like a stick situation where I come around and break it, right? But there were two different ways that we did that. So one of them was an actual stick. So when the camera is down this way, they have to see the wood fibers, right?
Hmm.
And they have to actually see the break. But it had to be like the wood fibers had to be like perfectly placed within each other, and they were very fragile so that it wouldn't just fall out, because that
Uh-huh.
definitely did happen sometimes. So we had to break that. And then from another angle, you're seeing the break, but you're not seeing the actual back of the arrow. So we had a magnet attachment, and then we're having to fake like the effort of the attachment, even though they're just magnets.
Hmm.
And then of course from behind, or sorry, there was like another little like metal thing too, so that when I'm pushing it through, I'm like leaning on her and I push the metal thing into the rig. So there was that. And then of course they turn it around and they have
Hmm.
this prosthetic piece
That's cool.
where they're shoving it through. And I didn't have to do that. That was all special effects because they had a very specific way of doing it. And when the blood would be released and all that stuff. So when they push it through, I was just like standing on the side. I was just watching.
Hmm.
I was just like I was sticking it in, and I thought it was so cool. So yeah, they were like, how many is that? Like four different parts just to
Hmm.
that specific arrow scene, and I just thought it was fascinating. I
Yeah,
loved
that's
it.
sick. I love that scene. Like both you and Jenna, like
Oh,
great
so good.
job. Oh,
Thank you. I'm so happy to hear that because
yeah.
it
I
was
mean,
so fun.
I was like, when the arrow went through, I was like, oh no, like I
Yeah.
didn't want to see it, but like before and everything, it was great.
Yeah, I think it's so funny because I'm like notoriously horrible with blood.
Hmm.
Like I getting shots or whatever, I'm just really, really bad about it. But then being on this show, because my mind knows that it's all fake. And
Yeah,
I know
for
that
sure.
very well. It doesn't gross me out. So even when I'm watching the arrow scene back, I'm like, I feel nothing.
Oh,
But
good.
but yeah, but under typical circumstances, blood like really, it really wigs me out.
hmm Um, one more thing about Jen and Melissa. I know you spoke about it before that you felt that for Jen, Melissa and Shauna's relationship blindsided her, which is
Yeah,
interesting to hear because there's like this one look in episode 2 where like Shauna
I know exactly
pushes
what you're talking
past Jen
about.
and Melissa, and then Jen gives Melissa like a look. So to me, that felt like a knowing look of like, oh, that's your crush, like, you know?
No, totally,
Um,
and you're not the only one that felt that way. That's what I find so fascinating about what, like reading all of the like the fan reception and audience reception afterwards, because the way that it was written or the way that we played it might not be received in the same way. And at the end of the day, I just think it's cool because it's like we can only do what works for us and what works based off of the page and what we know. And then we throw it out, like I said, into the ethers, and it belongs to you guys. So whatever you guys deduce, I think is fascinating. I think that that's
mhm,
really fun to watch. But technically, what that was supposed to be was that, Melissa and Jen and some of the others, like I said, with that dynamic of hierarchy, there's so many times that they do shit that we're just like scoffing at and laughing at.
I
Like this
gotcha.
goes like, and Shauna, as much empathy as we as a collective have for her because she went through such a horrible, traumatic event in season 2 with giving birth. I can't even imagine.
Hmm
But there has been some time that has passed, and there's only so much empathy that sometimes these teenage people
for sure.
can give to her to a degree. Like if Shauna's just gonna keep like punishing the rest of us and being bitches to the rest of us, yeah, we can have empathy and understand, but at the end of the day, you're also just being a bitch to some of us for no
hmm
reason.
Yeah.
And so like blasting past us and stuff, like it was
hmm
more of a kind of like
hmm I
classic
gotcha.
Shauna doing her thing. So I just love that people saw it the other way, which you know
Yeah.
what? Like I said, it belongs to you guys. You guys can do whatever you like with it or think whatever you like. It doesn't bother me at
hmm
all.
Yeah, that's so interesting though that there's like those two sides to the scene, which yeah, that's what I love
Yeah,
about the show that there's so many interpretations, yeah.
exactly.
Um,
And yeah,
so getting to episode 9, I watched it this morning and I'm sometimes I think about it, I'm like, oh my God.
I know.
Um,
Crazy.
So, well, yeah, with the teen timeline, and we just talk about Shauna, we'll talk about that scene where, how do you think Jen feels, after seeing Melissa get publicly berated like that? And then to add on, second question, can you talk about just filming a scene like that? How, so emotionally charged and I'm assuming very difficult to film because, I'm watching it and I just feel horrible, the whole time.
Yeah, it was a horrible situation. Yeah, that was so fucked up. Um, So it's funny because I was watching that back. I had watched it when we had some what are called screeners. So I've
hmm
already technically seen all 10 episodes ahead of their release date. But then with episode 9 coming out again, it's been a minute since I watched episode 9. So I actually watched it last night when I got home from Sylvana's birthday.
Oh,
Yeah.
nice.
So I got home and watched it and I it's so hard to watch and also I maybe some audience members feel the same way with this question, and I was excited to kind of address this on this call with you because you'll notice that Van runs straight for Melissa
hmm
to help to help her
hmm
because of her wetting herself from the fear, and Jen is not running over totally,
hmm
but it's like there was there's a couple factors. One of them was that Jen is sort of in shock, and you might see her in the background,
Yeah,
kind of
you're
like
like covering your face. Yeah.
exactly because
hmm
she genuinely thought that her friend
Who's
had
gonna
just
die?
been.
Yeah.
And so the shock in your body of what that looks like, but
hmm
also from a practical standpoint, and I just like to tell you guys this stuff because I think it's important to know.
hmm
I'm also learning how to like how to be how to like stand up for what I would think the character would do. And so like I almost kind of like wish that I had the courage to be like, I really think Jen needs to
hmm
run for her. But I also want to be respectful of how everything is blocked. And I don't as an actor, I like to do what I am directed to do because
Mhm.
yes, I know the character very well and I can add insight, but at the end of the day, it's not my place to be telling the director and the people around me, this is what I should be doing. You know,
Mhm.
to a degree, of course, if it's a really glaring thing, but at the end of the day, how we played it is that Jen is just in such shock. And also she's on the side, so she doesn't totally see um Melissa wet herself yet, where Van is.
Mhm.
Van can see directly, and Jen, it has everything's happening so
For
fast,
sure.
right? But
Yeah.
on the other hand, there is that part of me as an actor where I'm watching it from an audience perspective, being like, Jen, like, run for her.
Get
Like,
your girl.
have to get your girl, right? But that was
Mhm.
a mix of things. A, it was the shock, and then B, it was also I'm finding my footing as an actor and figuring out when I can or and should maybe speak up to be like, hey, I maybe think that Jen should do this.
Mhm.
Because there was a little bit of that on the day, but I'm learning about that
Yeah.
stuff, right? I'm finding my courage to speak up, and ultimately our director that episode was freaking amazing.
Mhm.
So it's not my place. It's not my place.
Me personally, like I felt like there was so like a little bit of movement. So like in my head, I was like, oh well, Jen goes to comfort Melissa with Van. Do you know what I mean? So I'm like,
And that
she
did
would have
end up
done it.
happening. It
Yeah.
did end up happening, but of course, after it was kind of cut a certain way. But
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. Can you talk about like just filming, I don't know, like just being in that environment of like all that energy buzzing and I don't know.
it was phenomenal. So when I had first met everybody, we called it kind of a cast rehearsal. So so that was the night before that I had a freak out and was
Hmm.
not sleeping because I was so incredibly nervous to meet everybody. But thank God they did that before we actually started shooting because I got to get all my nerves out, find my people within that group, and then we started shooting. So
Hmm.
the cast rehearsal was on a separate day, and we got to be introduced to this environment. We got to see the village. We got to figure out where our huts were going to be. There were like name cards on each of the huts to kind of tell us where, like, who
Hmm.
was staying where. And that was fascinating. And like the best part about this show is how immersive it is. The set decks and everything, like, they're just phenomenal because you guys also don't see, but in the huts too, it's
Hmm.
all decorated in a specific way that actually matches each of us as
That's
characters.
so
And it was just
nice.
fascinating. Yeah, because you wouldn't always get that on a production. And we're so lucky with Yellowjackets to have all of that. And one scene that stands out as full on immersion is the cave stuff,
Oh yeah.
because we were on a set that was completely built in a studio, as I'm sure you can imagine, just given the fact that it is a cave. And so they had built all of this stuff, and in between our shots, they're actually spraying water all along the top and sides of this cave. And there's like there's plants and almost like lichen and stuff like falling down from the ceiling and around you. And then there's little puddles that we're dodging and walking through as well. So it smells and feels like musty, kind of
Yeah.
like moist. And it's
Hmm.
cold too because there's like AC running as well because it was an incredibly hot day outside that we were shooting that. So the AC is going, but then there's water dripping on you and you're like navigating through all
Hmm.
these leaves and foliage. And then there were even times where it's like there was one time where we're walking through. We also just have the candlelight as well. So there's that. And then I like completely stepped in a puddle and like soaked my shoe and my sock and everything. And I'm like, it was a full on cave set. Like we were in it. And it was just, and it's way bigger than you guys think it is. And there's like little tiny areas that we're having to one by one like shove
Hmm.
our way through.
Oh.
It's just
Mhm.
so cool. I loved it. I
Yeah.
loved all of that. It was so immersive.
Yeah,
So like
definitely in the episode it seemed it like the way they directed it and everything, it was really cool.
it was so cool. I loved it.
So getting back to episode 9, do you think Shauna missed on purpose or do you think she really meant to shoot her?
I think she missed it on purpose. I
Okay.
really,
I think so
I,
too.
yeah, I think she did. Um, I don't know what Sophie's
Hmm.
feeling is on that, but I think it's to me it's very clear that she missed, or sorry, that she did it purposefully
Hmm.
to make a point. And I think that she was coming from a point of anger. And say what you want about Shauna, she can do some really fucked up things, but at the end of the day, like you've watched her from season one. She isn't inherently an evil person,
No.
really isn't. And I think that those feelings between Shauna and Melissa, it's complicated. It's a
Oh yeah.
complicated dynamic there, right? So, but I just don't believe that Shauna would have meant for that to happen.
Hmm.
That's not what I feel
Hmm.
personally.
Yeah. If she wanted her dead, she'd be dead, I think.
Absolutely, I completely agree with you.
Hmm.
If you wanted somebody to be dead, she would just do it.
Hmm.
No.
And my last question for episode 9 is that last scene where Natalie's, crying. It's the rescue plan didn't go according to plan. Oh my God. And snow is falling. Practically, did you guys just leave her in the woods crying? Because there's
It's
a
funny.
lot of questions. I think a lot of people have this question. For me, I was like, okay, like they're gonna pan in and like it's gonna like it's a symbolic thing. She's alone, she's feeling
But then you see.
lonely. And then they pan back out and you guys are just gone. So I don't know, can you talk about that?
So it's funny because in the moment when we were shooting that, I had expected that it would be exactly the same way that you were talking about, where it
Hmm.
pans out, it's indicative of how lonely she's feeling and how upset she is, and it's almost acting as if there's nobody there.
Hmm.
However, as soon as the misty stuff started to come in, and as soon as I clocked that this is a continuation between the two, I think it was a situation where it's like, like I said previously, there is a lot of respect for Nat there. And
Mm,
as far as like if Nat is breaking down and crying,
yeah.
there has to be an understanding of not us just being like, let's just leave, but more of an
Hmm.
understanding that she needs a
She needs
sec.
a moment. Yeah, I got
Yeah,
you.
she needs a moment because of everything that has happened. We're all in fear now of what is to come. And Natalie, very rarely do we see her fully emote.
Hmm.
And it was a situation where it's like, okay, I get it now. When we're shooting, it was like, it seems so cold maybe from an outside perspective,
Hmm.
but when with the relationship that all of us have
Yeah.
with Natalie, it's like she needs a second.
Yeah,
She we need to just like leave her to handle all of this.
for sure. That
Like
makes
within
sense.
reason, obviously, everybody knows how to get back to where we were going. It's not like we're
Hmm.
so far out that she can get lost. But yeah. I remember watching it back last night, being like, "No, I know damn well people are gonna be upset that we like ran off."
Don't worry, we will
But
set the record
obviously,
straight.
yes, we'll set the
Yeah.
record straight. Natalie. Think about it this way: like, would Natalie have broken down in sobs in the way that she did if everybody else was around her? I don't know.
Hmm.
I don't know. I
Yeah.
personally don't believe that.
Yeah.
Yes, there were some creative choices as to like
Hmm.
going in and then panning out, but yeah, as far as justification is concerned with what we were kind of doing, it was like, no, she needs to do her thing.
Hmm. That makes sense. Okay.
Yeah,
Thank you for
promise
clearing
we were
that
not as
up.
evil. Can you
Yeah.
imagine if we were like just gonna dip after?
I know it's like, oh, she's crying. Not dealing with us. Bye.
Yeah, later.
Yeah.
That'd be crazy.
Yeah, it would. So I guess looking towards the future with Jen, I know there's that line that Jen and Melissa got close to Hannah. I know we haven't seen it yet, and you can't really say much, but could you talk about what it was like working with Ashley Sutton,
I
if you
love her
can?
so much. She's really a lovely person. Joel's a lovely person. Nelson's amazing. So it was fun having this dynamic of three new people entering because we were so used to shooting day in and day out with each other. And then all of a sudden these new people come in, and I cannot imagine how it was with people who've been working on this show and acting on the show since season one because they've never had new people come
Hmm.
in. For me,
Yeah.
I'm new. And even I felt it, let alone then if I was working in season two and season one, especially season two, because they're all cooped up in the cabin for so much of it. It must have just felt so bizarre. But Ashley is a wonderful person. She's such a hard worker. She is one of those actors that like she just really puts in the work, and you know that. She was coming into this show brand new as well, but she did all of the research that she could do, and I think it shows. I just think she's a kind, sweet person, and what you see with Hannah is actually quite similar to Ashley. Like Ashley just has this inherent, kindness and sweetness and protective nature. And yeah, I'm just really excited for you guys to see where that dynamic comes into play later on.
Yeah. Especially with what Hannah just did in this last episode.
I
I'm
know.
very excited and intrigued with what she's going to do.
I know, right? From your audience perspective, how do you feel about why she did that? I'm so curious.
I mean, I think it's kind of like with like I think it's like the thesis of the show of like that these women are capable of doing these crazy things, and
Hmm.
when you have this adult woman come into the mix, you find out that she can be just like the teenage girls, and
Yeah,
I think
totally.
that's super interesting. And
Yeah.
um I mean, she knows that she shouldn't rat out Natalie, and I just think she's a very smart character in knowing what it takes to
Totally agree.
survive with these girls because she is, lying to Melissa a little bit.
Mhm.
She's buying into the paranoia about Eric, and she's really not sure what's going on, but like she knows
Yeah.
she wants to survive and she knows to align herself with the powers that be, being Shauna,
Yeah.
and but also not ratting out Nat because she doesn't want her to be angry at her either. So there's a lot to go
But there's
on.
that seed of doubt
Hmm.
with her asking Cody, who's Eric?
Exactly.
And I think that that's very indicative of like where her mind goes. I think there's a lot of reasons why. I'd be so curious to for you guys to potentially ask Ashley directly
Yeah.
and see what she said about that moment. But yeah, I thought that that was really, really fun to watch because obviously with those scenes, we're not there. It's a private scene that's going on between people. I was there, but I
Yeah.
was in my hut with we were shooting that stuff
Hmm.
after. Um, but yeah, I thought that that was played so cool. And then
Yeah.
seeing the like knife in the eye, I was like, oh
Hmm.
my
And like the way her like face immediately switches and kind of like hardens and she's like, I'm gonna do that. And like you see it in her that like she is capable of even more. And that's what's really
so
cool.
crazy. I know. It's
Yeah.
so crazy. She's great. I loved
Yeah.
all three of them. Wonderful people.
Yeah. Um, so let's see. I'm trying to think questions and be respectful of your time and stuff. So
Dude,
um
I'm telling you, I literally have nothing to do until like 7.
okay, so maybe we'll go a little
Today's
over
my
if
day
that's
off.
okay with you. Is that all
I'm
right? We'll go a little
so
over.
yeah, of course. Literally after I talk to you, I'm gonna like play Sims 2 or something.
Oh, that's amazing.
I'm like, I'm all good.
All
There's a
right.
reason why I scheduled this on this day. 'Cause I'm
All
like,
right. Thank you
I gotta
so
shoot this
much.
today.
All right.
Yeah.
So then I'll ask my follow-up question for that is, we have Jen and Melissa, we have Jen and Hannah. What, who's another character that you wish Jen interacted with more?
I wish that you guys could see a little bit more between Jen and Nat.
Yeah.
Um, because I think that if you guys did, it would be a lot clearer of an understanding with like the push scene and the bumping into her. Like I wish that there was more justification, maybe not justification, but like more reason for you guys to believe that there is something deeper than just Jen being a bitch for virtually no reason, you know? I think that that would have been cool for you guys to see a little bit more. It's implied, but the thing is that it's only really implied through the hunting situation
Hmm.
from what you guys see. Um, so as far as like if you guys are just seeing her push and then bump her and all this kind of stuff, it's almost implied that there's something wrong there
Yeah.
or a disrespect there. Which, you know what, like if you're so lost in the sauce and like dealing with all this, like if you're really that afraid of Shauna and you're doing that
Hmm.
stuff, like I totally understand there is like a certain level of like pathetic in that. But I understand where it's coming from. And I think that if we were all being honest with each other, it's very easy to say that you would never do those things, but you don't know. You don't know if you would do
Hmm.
those things in that situation. The
Hmm.
circumstances are awful. You're stuck between a rock and a hard place, but I wish you were able to see a little bit more between Jen and Nat.
Yeah, for
I
sure.
think,
Because
yeah.
they seem to share the same goals. Like they both want to go home,
Mhm.
and I would think, I mean, I would want to hear from you about this, but I think Jen doesn't really believe in the wilderness either. Because back in season 2, when Lottie and Nat have their hunting match, Jen and Melissa are team Nat, which
Yeah.
is arguably team, rational team, no wilderness. So I don't know. Do you have any thoughts on that about Jen's belief in the
Yeah.
wilderness?
Yeah, I mean, listen, there may have been moments in season two, or like tiny moments. I mean, very tiny moments. I think it's very clear in season two, even with Jen saying like, I don't know, they're dumb jock boyfriends, gods of the dirt. I don't give a fuck. Like
Hmm.
when they're talking about what they're talking about.
Hmm.
Um, some things can be spiritual in a way that is not the wilderness. Like, for example, in our first episode, when we're all in a circle together and we're honoring Javi and the baby and like all of these things, it is a very spiritual gathering, but you can do something like that and not believe in the wilderness.
Yeah.
However, there are moments that can make you freak out a little bit, like hearing the frogs
Hmm.
screaming. And there are moments like that where even a non-believer would be like, I have nothing to support what I'm hearing that is based in reality. So there is sometimes that seed of doubt there, but ultimately, you're right. Jen and Nat just want to go home. Their priority is going home. Fuck the wilderness and like
Yeah.
whatever. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying?
Who cares
Uh,
what it wants? I
yeah,
want
who
to go home.
cares? Yes, exactly. I don't care. You guys can believe whatever the hell you want to believe, whatever makes you feel better about what you're doing. But at the end of the day, at her core belief, I think Jen thinks it's bullshit. Or at least
Hmm.
that's what I've been reading it as.
Yeah.
Everything that Jen has done and said thus far, for the most part, has been very practical.
Yeah, for
And
sure.
going forward, you'll see that too.
Okay.
Yeah.
Speaking of going forward, we have that line, both Jen and Melissa are dead.
Hmm.
Um, and I know you've seen like pit girl theories. I know for me, Jen is a pit girl contender, which I think is so funny that like going into this season, I was like, oh, there could only be like two people, Jen and
I
Mari, and
know.
then they were introduced new people, and now there's more people that can be pit girl.
Um,
So I guess how does that line bode for Jen? I know you can't say anything, like no, obviously you
mhm.
can't say what happens to her.
Of course.
But also, how do you feel reading that script? Because then you're like, oh man, am I out of a job? You know?
True. True to a degree. Um, how can I word this in a way that isn't going to spoil? I, you would think that me reading that in the script, that I'd be like, oh man, I'm out of a job. When in
Mhm.
reality, I already knew what my outcome was going to be.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
So it's not like it was a significant shock.
Hmm.
Um, and also when I came onto the show, I had suspicions of what my character would end up
Hmm.
as. And whether that is Pit Girl or in some other way,
Hmm.
that's up for you to decide. But I this is another thing. If you like the show and if you know the show and you
People are gonna
have
die.
dark hair, you're coming into the show being like, okay,
Yeah,
let's see what
exactly.
happens. And you guys will see what happens. But
Hmm.
um,
Hey,
but
Melissa
yeah,
beat the death allegations.
sorry,
Oh, Melissa beat the death allegations, so maybe Jen can too.
maybe,
Maybe.
maybe, maybe Melissa's not the only one,
Maybe.
actually. But I don't know.
Hmm.
I know
We'll just
nothing.
have to wait to see.
Wait and
So kind of
see.
going off of that, do you have a dream fan cast for adult Jen? And what do you think she would be up to in adulthood
Yeah,
if she lives to adulthood?
totally. I've said this before, but I leave everything like that to the powers that be. Um, I really, yeah. But I wish I could say more on that
You're
too.
good.
But as far as me and like if I were to do a dream cast, to be honest with you, I have no idea. It's really hard. It's really difficult casting um biracial people. And I'm not like I'm biracial, right? So it's like I connect with both of my sides. I wouldn't be necessarily insulted as myself. I can't speak on the audience as a whole, but I wouldn't be insulted if they were to have trouble casting someone like you can't find. Oh, I can't even think off the top of my mind of another actor within that age range, um, femme presenting and has the same mix as me. Like I just can't really I can't really think of anybody. off the top of my head. So it would have to be someone who at least has my coloration and stuff. And to be honest with you, I don't know. It's funny because I was asked that question before and I had absolutely no answer to it. So then I was curious and I was like looking through,
Mhm.
actors and I still couldn't really, I couldn't find anybody. It would be, yeah,
I'm
it
sure the
would be
fans could probably find someone.
maybe, maybe it's possible. But I know that a lot of fans also want Jen dead. Maybe they'll be like, fuck this, I'm not finding it. Just purely out of spite. And you
That's
know what?
crazy.
Period. I get it. I
That's
so
so
get
funny. You probably cannot say anything, but I'm gonna ask the question anyways. What can you tease about the finale for Jen?
it. Maybe I could tease something. Hmm. I think that you are going to see a continuation of one side versus another.
Hmm.
Just because their plan didn't work out this time doesn't mean they aren't going to pursue another
Hmm.
way the plan can be enacted.
Hmm.
If you guys are wanting to kind of see more of the bond between the group of going, you will see that. It's not like they're just having a roadblock and they're like, okay, I guess we're staying. Like, no,
Hmm.
you
Okay.
will see a continuation of that. So that's something that I could tell you. That's kind of exciting and
Yeah,
adds to the dynamic in a major way.
that's really exciting. Cool.
Thanks.
Um, okay, so now these are like behind the scenes questions.
Okay.
I remember I think Liv Houston said this about enjoying ensemble scenes in season one because it allowed them to do things in the background of scenes because, if you're not getting the one-on-one, at least you're in the ensemble and you're always doing something in the background. And I always love watching the ensemble scenes like that because everyone's always making choices and I think it's so interesting.
Sure.
So is there anything that you can think of that you were doing in the background of scenes that may help people understand Jen a little bit more?
There were a few. I mean, the one moment that I really loved was one that you mentioned at the beginning with Melissa trying to leave and Jen telling
Hmm.
her that she needs to stay. That was kind of like an ad-libbed situation. One thing to keep in mind is that also the people who are speaking in a scene, they get mic'd, right?
Hmm.
But the people who like they don't have enough mics for all of us, and it would be
Hmm.
way too overwhelming for the sound people to just be hearing all these voices. It would be awful. Um, but what's cool is that when we're in the back, we are saying things. It's not like we're just like shooting the shit about like what we're gonna eat that at lunch that day. It's like we are saying things, and that was one moment that I was really happy was still included because we were doing that and saying that, and you could kind of hear it, but not a lot. And then so when we were in ADR after the fact, filling in all of those moments, I was really happy that they had asked us to still do that because I was like, that's really, it's just such a, I don't know, it's just such a sweet moment
Hmm.
between the two. And I don't know, there were a lot of moments, like even just cooking food in the background too, and like making soup and chopping things up. And there's a scene as well in episode 9 where Shauna is starting to get a little bit wigged out with the idea that maybe the people around her are planning against her. Like,
Hmm.
remember that there's the scene where Shauna's walking into her hut and
Yeah.
you can see that like me and the gang are like
Hmm.
at the fire. Um, what's interesting is that we're leaving it up to your guys' interpretation a little bit with that. We kind of had we knew what was happening for us, but it's up for interpretation for you guys of whether that was something that Shauna was actually seeing and hearing,
Hmm.
or if it was just her head going
Yeah,
against her. So
that's
we know
interesting.
what's happening in that. We know the truth of that situation, but we loved the ambiguity of that. So we were whispering things in the back. Um, but yeah, whether it was like in Shauna's head or not is
Hmm.
totally up to you guys. But I love the idea that it could be, even if it's like maybe different from what we shot or the same as what we shot. I don't know. I think that that moment was kind of fun because
Yeah.
we're just talking, we're just saying shit.
Yeah. And it's like, are you guys talking about the weather or is it like Shauna's paranoia, like all that stuff? That's
Yeah,
so interesting. Yeah.
totally. Yeah, absolutely. It was just so
Yeah.
fun.
So being a fan of the show, before, were there any moments when you were filming where you were like, man, fans are gonna love this?
Mm. From a very self-centered perspective, I think that everybody was gonna really like genlissa stans were gonna love the arrow scene. So me and
They
me
ate
and
it
Jenna
up.
had like read the script and we looked at each other, we're like, oh boy. Finally, we get, or as you guys call it, genlissa crumbs. We were like,
Hmm.
yeah. And so we were excited for that. I was so so excited for the end of episode 6 when the frog scientists come
Hmm.
in. I was just like chomping at the bit, like waiting for you guys to watch that. I was so excited for you guys to see. And also just the frog scientist episode as a whole, because I found it so fun
Hmm.
watching the three in the beginning of that episode. I understand that maybe if fans were kind of like, okay, like we want to go back to the gang. Like I want to see them. But I think the frog scientist stuff was fascinating. They did such a great job. And I think that that stuff is important to know in a lot of ways. So even though it's not, spending time on the regular gang, I think it's very important because all of that contributes to the overall storyline. I think that sometimes you really just need to dedicate time to the stuff that you need. Trust me, if the editors or whoever could cut that down in a way like to, add more space for other things, they would. But they
Hmm.
keep in the that they know are important. So we have to keep that in mind. And just kind of hands off. There's a reason for everything, even if you guys don't see it all the time, right? There is a reason. So I was excited for that. I'm so excited for the finale. Um, and then there's a moment um at the very end of the finale that I am just like so excited for people to see it. I'm so excited. I remember reading it and like literally screaming.
You're making me nervous already.
I'm sorry, but I mean the whole finale, to be honest, is just go, 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 go. It's
Hmm.
just go.
That's so
And
exciting.
it's very exciting. I loved reading it. I loved watching it. Um, yeah, I thought that it was really exciting. But at the end of the finale, I'm just like, oh my God. Like,
Yeah.
I just think you guys are gonna love it.
I love that you mentioned the genless crumbs. And I love how you and Jenna play into and they were roommates. That was so funny.
Yeah, I
I love
know.
it. I love it.
We really love it. Like I think it's also different just because her and I are such good friends.
Hmm.
It's like it's just a fun thing. We love the people's involvement in it, and it's yeah, it's
Yeah.
I just yeah, I think it's just so sweet. I think it's so sweet.
Yeah, for sure. I know we spoke about this before, but are there any other deleted scenes that you remember that didn't make the cut?
It's funny because rather than deleted scenes for the most part, it's just little deleted like well, it's funny because it's not even necessarily deleted. It might be things that weren't even shot, but were on the
Mm.
page.
Oh
They have
yeah.
to like go into other things. So for example, that push is that's a good one to talk about because it wasn't shot. It was just written and it was acted
Ah.
as us because we were acting it the way that it was written, but the way that it was shot, we did acknowledge that people might not see it.
Hmm.
And and that is what happened basically. But our director for that episode was amazing. So there's a purpose for everything and we
Hmm.
completely recognize that. But I just wish from, a selfish standpoint wanting to defend Jen's honor, I do wish that you guys got to see that. There is a scene that I think we shot it episode 9. Yeah, 100% it was episode 9 because at the end of it Melissa comes in and we all have to like shut up
Hmm.
basically. But there is a little bit more conspiring in episode 9 than what you just see with like us preparing dinner and Misty coming around. There was a little bit more to that. Um, so that you guys can see a little bit more planning. But to be honest with you, even though it was so fun to shoot, and we it's kind of funny because we're like in the scene, we're like chopping down like branches. So each of us had our axes and we were like chopping it. But a lot of us have never chopped anything ever with an
Uh-huh.
axe. So we're like as a group, like trying to chop them but still talk, and sometimes the branch would just like not break. So we're like trying to deliver. Oh my God, it's just so funny. And yeah, and I'm pretty sure that was episode. No, maybe it was episode 10 actually. I'm forgetting. I'm forgetting. But
Okay.
I know that it was edited out. I know that it
Mhm.
was edited, which I think is hilarious because, like, to be honest with you, you know what?
They saw the axe chopping skills and they were like, no, 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 we can't.
I would be just as understanding if they watched it back and were like, okay, guys, we we gotta cut this.
That's
It's
so
like the
funny.
way they cut us running and replace
Mhm.
us with people because it's like you little theater bitches can't run, can you? And I get it.
That's so funny.
Valid. Yeah. So yeah, for me, it's just like little looks that I think were cut
Hmm.
out, but with scenes that are cut out, I or done differently, usually I'm kind of the mind that, everything's purposeful. I just put
Everything
my
happens for a reason.
everything happens for a
Hmm.
reason. It's not my business. You know what? It's like just little Jen moments where I'm like, oh, I wish
Hmm.
that that was in there. But again, not my business. And that's
Yeah.
okay. And I'm totally happy with that. You know,
All right, a couple more questions. I don't want to keep you. Uh, I
no,
kind of
no,
feel
no.
bad.
Don't feel bad.
Um, uh, do you have a notable interaction with either one of your co-stars, crew member that you'll cherish?
Hmm, there's a lot. There's
Feel free to say multiple.
yeah, okay, sounds
Yeah.
good. There were a lot of moments where Jenna and I would just be like playing our Switch in the green room and stuff, and that was really fun. And Sophie Thatcher like having her DS and playing like the original Dogs game. I don't even think it was Nintendogs. I'm pretty sure it was just Dogs, like the DOGZ, like or Z for Americans. Um, but yeah, like that was super fun. There's there was a day, and I'm pretty sure it was finale. I swear to God, it was finale because we were all losing our minds by the finale.
Mm-hmm.
Not that we wanting to leave, it was just that like the exhaustion and the
Hmm.
subject matter of the finale, we were just like, oh my God.
Hmm.
And we were shooting at night for one of the scenes, but a lot of us, like a handful of us, were in the green room, just kind of like trying to stay alive in the middle of the night. And it was Kevin, Alexa, me, Jenna, Mia, Sammy. Although I think Sammy had to shoot down there a little bit, or I say down there because the green room was up a hill, and then
Hmm.
down the
I
hill
gotcha.
was the village. And I think that was all of us. I'll feel so horrible if it wasn't, but I think that was all of us. We were the ones that were there. And I have videos that I cannot wait to post of like we were just so tired and in crack hour, so we're like doing dance battles and like rap battles and stuff, but we were trying to be quiet because it's like we don't want them to hear, but we were also like just like really like losing our minds. So
Hmm.
there's like there's like videos I have of Jenna doing a rap and they're so funny, and then yeah, Alexa and Nia having a dance battle, and I just have the whole thing recorded, and it's so funny. And I can't wait to be able to post that one day because it's truly one of my favorite moments in the entire time of shooting that I just yeah, it was just a moment that we all really needed.
Yeah,
Just
for
like
sure.
and enjoying each other's company and and that group, like we're all really good friends with each other, and like it's very rare that like the groups even ever get separated at all. So it was just yeah, it was just so fun. I
That's
love
so
them.
nice. I'm excited to see that video. I think
I know,
fans,
I'm excited for you
everyone
guys.
loves the behind the scenes content. So
It's
yeah,
just the shitty part is that it's like we definitely can't share them because we're all in costume,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
In wardrobe. So if you guys see wardrobe, then there could be spoilers,
People
right?
piece things together.
People will piece things together.
Yeah.
Absolutely. But I will say, one thing I will say, because sometimes I lurk and I
Hmm.
see some things, right? What you guys might see in photos is not always necessarily the truth.
Yeah.
So I do want you guys to like keep that in mind because I
Hmm.
do see some things where they're like, oh my God, like, that's a spoiler from
Hmm.
like what and It might not be,
Yeah.
actually. So leave yourself open-minded to the possibility that like you guys are very smart and very discerning.
Hmm.
However, there are still things that are surprises.
Yeah. Do you have I guess this is kind of like a offshoot of that question of, do you have a shooting experience that stands out to you, whether it's favorite scene or surprisingly difficult to film?
Some moments in the finale were really difficult for me. Maybe it was just exhaustion as well, like pure exhaustion, just because it's like when we're shooting, like we're going ham. Like
Hmm.
it's long days every day in rain, shine, heat, freezing cold. It's muddy, it's gross, or it's dry, and you're at risk of getting a sunburn. Like there's just so many factors that go involved in it. And there were some moments in the finale. I think I was just at like peak exhaustion. And so it wasn't even necessarily subject matter. I was just like, oh, my body is just like my body and my mind are
Yeah.
just like there's a lot. There's just a lot of like
Hmm.
intense subject matter and everything. And I mean, I'm on fucking Yellowjackets. I'm okay with it. Like I'm
Yeah.
not like I watch this show, I watch horror, I watch all
Hmm.
those things. If things get gruesome, it's fine. It's just yeah,
It's
it's
hard
just
for your body to separate that, like the fake trauma from like, is this really happening to me? So yeah, that makes
yeah,
sense.
sometimes. I think so. And I think that I didn't really feel it until probably the very end.
Hmm.
And you could just attribute that to exhaustion,
Yeah.
where I was like, I just needed a couple moments. But yeah, besides that, to be honest with you, it was a wonderful shooting experience. I really did enjoy it.
I'm glad to hear that.
Yeah, I'm glad that it went that way. Thank God.
Hmm. I heard you have a playlist for Jen called Jenny on the Block.
I
Um,
do.
can you share some songs that are on there, or what do you
Yeah,
think Jen's
for
favorite
sure.
song would be on there?
So one thing I'm opening
Hmm.
my playlist. Um, I one thing is that I'm very specific,
Hmm.
and I'm not saying this as a spoiler. I'm saying it because I think it's important that when we're shooting the timeline, because this is the whole point, is that I listen to the playlist when we're shooting the
Hmm.
timeline. Um, is that I insist that I have no music that came out after the plane crashed. And
For
I'm
sure.
very specific about like right down to like the season and
Hmm.
everything. So okay, let's see Jenny from the Block. I kind of know already what songs are in it, but I wanted there to be kind of like a combo of top 40 because she's in high school. Like honestly, they're all in high school. I think it's a lot of top 40. Obviously, I included Shoop because Shoop is a
Oh yeah,
classic
of
of the
course.
game, right? Um, I have some Blur, I have the Cranberries. I actually also included No Return as well at the
Hmm.
as the top first song, just because I actually love our opening. I think
Gets you
it's so
pumped.
cool. I love our opening song. I just think it's awesome.
Hmm.
Um, and then I also have Killing in the Name by Rage Against the Machine. I have 1979 by the Smashing Pumpkins. Yeah, I have quite a few in here that I really, yeah, I love them. They're really great. And it really helped me get in the zone. I have a Pinterest board as well.
Oh,
That sounds
sick.
so like Pinterest mom, but like
No,
I have a
no.
Pinterest board that's all like 90s shows and music artists and fashion and wilderness stuff. And it's just basically a Pinterest board of like all the things that would be in Jen's mind.
That's so cool.
Um,
Yeah.
it helps me a lot. Like, I
Yeah.
mean, I was born in the 90s, obviously, but I was born in the late 90s. Like as far as like a childhood and teen experience, it was all the 2000s and the
Hmm.
2010s, right? I think it's important to still immerse yourself in the 90s because that's what they know. Very easy to forget that stuff,
Hmm.
when you're in the wilderness, but you have to kind of let that guide you as your foundation, I think.
Yeah. All right. Final questions. What are some things that you've learned on this show that you can see yourself taking to other projects?
Everything, to be honest with you. Working with a large ensemble together all the time is actually an incredibly rare thing. Usually, when you work on shows, you're not always working with the same people. You could work on a show and never see another lead character. There are many shows like that. And I think that you develop some really important skills working in an ensemble with so many people. And I mean, like, there's a lot there that you can learn. For me with Jen, with the arrow stuff, I was learning how to do all of that practical work. I thought that was fascinating, and the whole time I was thinking, uh, I'm probably never going to be able to do this exact thing again. So I'm just learning so much from it. Um, oh man, costuming stuff and having mics attached. I know that sounds so specific, but it's just like we're wearing like layers or oh my God, I had like a romper that I wore for so much of it. You're actually going to see me wearing it again in the beginning of next episode. And like rompers are so hard to wear when you're having to go to the bathroom.
Oh, for
And then if
sure.
there are already some promo pictures that you've seen of next episode when I'm wearing it, so that's why I'm
Hmm.
perfectly fine to tell you. But I have like sweatpants underneath, and then I have the romper. And then in the beginning of the season, you're seeing me like with this fucking romper. I love costuming, by the way. They're wonderful. It's not against them at all. But I have this like romper, but then I have the vest, and then I have to do up the vest, and then I have the belt, and I
Uh-huh.
have to do this stuff, and then I'm mic'd up as well. So it's all like connected to me. And then when I have to go to the bathroom, I have to go to the bathroom at like a very like specific time. Sorry, my boyfriend's calling me. I have to do it at like a very specific time because I have a very small window to be able to go.
Hmm.
And then I it's a stupid story. But yeah, I would like go and have to take everything off. So I learned how to do that. Like the quick changes were crazy. Um, and also just like working with a bunch of people at day in and day out. I love all of them, but like we're also all like mostly women and we're all just like we each handle stress differently and like there's just so many things like that, like interpersonally too, that I think are so important to learn and time management and yeah, there's so much. So much. And it's the first time that I've ever actually had a character that I can truly delve into. Actually like get my teeth in there. And that's
Hmm.
what I love to do at the end of the day. That's why I'm an actor. So then
Yeah.
to have this opportunity to do that, I was like, like I really get something that I can play with here and have relationships with that I care so much about. And that was, I learned so much just from that
Hmm.
alone.
Yeah. And you've done the work, you watch the show, you have the Pinterest board, the Spotify playlist, so and it's evident in how you play her. So,
I so appreciate that because, I can only hope.
oh yeah.
There's
I see the
definitely,
work and it's amazing.
I appreciate that because, we're all our toughest critics. Like once you're on something like this and you're watching it back, you now think, okay, I get now that there are many actors who cannot watch their work back. But I think from my perspective, because I'm so new and I'm learning, I think it's important that I watch stuff back, even if it's uncomfortable, even if I hate it. I'm learning about, moments where I watch it back and I'm like, okay, I remember that day and I remember that I fell out because of that day and I can see that it's transferred to screen and I don't like that. And then I'm gonna try and change or learn from that going forward.
Hmm.
There's definitely moments where I watch it back and I'm like, full actor. And then there's moments I watch it back where I'm like, oh my God, look at me go. So, so yeah, I think it's been cool being
Yeah,
able to see that. And I'm so honored and happy by you or anybody else that I think I did a good job because that's my
of
priority. I just
course.
want you guys to feel okay and feel like you guys can see Jen and yeah, that's what I really appreciate it when you guys say that. It means the world to me. It
Oh,
does.
I, I mean it, like it's
I
great.
really appreciate that a lot.
Yeah.
I appreciate it.
Do you have a moment you're most proud of from this season?
Getting through it, to be honest.
Yeah.
Getting through it. It's not that it was a chore. I'm not saying that. It's just that, again, like there was so much imposter syndrome going into this. And I I feel like I mean imposter syndrome is bad in any case, but I feel like it was justified because I was coming onto a show where I admired so many of these people as actors. So I knew that I understood realistically that I was coming in with less experience than these people. I didn't want that to hold back the show at all. So I needed to learn things at a very, very quick rate. And yeah, I just, yeah, I'm like losing track of what the question even was because I'm being
No, you're okay.
distracted by my own imposter syndrome. But I think that like, yeah, that was the biggest thing is that I just wanted to get over that. And yeah, if that kind of answers your
No,
question,
you're
it was
good. Yeah. I mean, the your answer to the other question too kind of answered it, but I just wanted to see if there's anything else. And then lastly, what kind of projects do you want to do in the future?
I would love, and I think you probably, if you watch the other interview, you probably already know the answer. Unless it hasn't come out yet. But my ideal situation is to be in a project where it's like fantasy of some variety and I
Hmm.
get to wield a sword. I would really love to I just hope that I don't have iPhone face where I can never work in a period piece or something because I it's hard for me to know that
Hmm.
objectively. I don't know how
Hmm.
anybody else feels about that. It'd be good to know if I
Hmm.
do or not. But I like love Lord of the Rings and I love fantasy. Like I literally have a Lord of the Rings tattoo. Um Also, I had this tattoo when I met Elijah Wood, and I was like hiding it with my sleeve. Everybody in the cast knew that I was a huge Lord of the Rings fan.
Hmm.
So everybody knew that it was like a huge moment for me. So when we were at the cast dinner and I was like seated across from him, he's never gonna fucking watch this. I can say this. Seated across from me, and literally all my friends around me were like side-eyeing me and looking at me, have a conversation with him, being like, when is she gonna
That's so
Where's
funny.
this up? Because I was literally shaking underneath the table because I just love Lord of the Rings so much that
Hmm.
I was having like a moment.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would love to do something like that. That is my dream. I mean, I would also love to do a musical because I grew up dancing and doing musical theater, and I feel so myself when I get to do that. It's my comfort zone. If I'm dancing and performing in that way, that is the thing that I know and grew up doing. So I feel very in my body when I do that. And yeah, so like a musical or fantasy, I would
Yeah.
just, I love indies though. I love dramas. I love everything. I would be
Hmm.
honored to, do it, but fantasy is crazy. I would love
Yeah. I could definitely see the sword. No axes. We know no axes, but the
no
sword
access.
I can see. I mean, your hair. I love your hair. It's so
Oh,
curly, and I could definitely
thank
see
you
it
so
in
much.
the fantasy world.
That's so amazing. It's so funny because I was thinking before I hopped on this call because I had like an appointment this morning and I hopped in the shower and I was just kind of slapped on some makeup and then finally was able to hop on this call with you. But I have naturally wavy hair.
Hmm.
So I was joking where I was like, at the beginning of this call, my hair's probably gonna be more like this, and then it's just gonna start to gradually get bigger and bigger because it does that. But that's very sweet of you. I really appreciate that. I really
Yeah.
appreciate
Well, I'm excited for what's in store for you, and thank you so much for taking the time to talk to me about
that.
Jen and season 3 of
Pleasure.
Yellowjackets. Like I said, loving everything that you're doing with her character, praying for her, praying for Jen no last name. Speaking of, do you have like a
I do.
headcanon? Yeah,
I do. I promise I do. It's just that I don't want to say anything in case they decide that they would like to give her a name
I
in
gotcha.
some way,
Hmm.
in some form. I don't know what that would be, but I do have a name in my mind. I just the only thing I will give away with that is that I think it's important to me to still play my own culture. Like here's where I'm coming from with it. I just don't want to play uh, like a different like ethnicity.
Hmm.
I because I just that's wrong, and I
Hmm.
and I don't believe in doing that. Like Maya and I are very clearly biracial in different
Hmm.
ways. I'm not gonna play my it just doesn't make sense. So I mean, it's just if they were to give me a name, I would like to in some way reference that in the
I
same way
gotcha.
that my last name and my middle name reference my Indian side.
Hmm.
So yeah, that's my only thing.
Uh-huh.
If I had any request, I would just want to honor that.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, she will be Jen no last name for now, hopefully, and maybe
My
she'll get a
last
last
name.
name.
Maybe she will,
Maybe.
or maybe she won't.
Yeah. But
Yeah,
yeah,
no,
thank
no, of
you again so much. And I'm
course.
excited for the finale.
It's like
Yeah.
1 week away.
Yes,
It's
it
so
is.
fun. It feels like so far now, but then you're gonna start your week and you're gonna do all the things you need to do, and then before you know it, it'll be Thursday night.
for sure. Yeah. So thank you again for everything.
Of course. Like I said, it was my pleasure. I love talking to you guys. I'm sorry that I'm such a yapper. I'm like,
No, don't apologize. I'm sorry I kept you over our allotted time.
don't even worry, dude. Like I said, I don't have anything to do until like 7 p.m. So I'm good.
Yeah. Well, we got a lot of
I'm
great
gonna
nuggets
eat
and
and fun
insights.
to Well, I very much appreciate it. Also, I love all your posters in the
Oh,
back
thank
too.
you. Thank you so
Yeah,
much.
we love them. They're so great. They're like a horror movie, Marvel. I have La
Yeah.
La Land
There's some
behind that I'm seeing.
Yellowjackets fan art over here.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
love the fan art so much. I think it's so neat.
Yeah.
I think it's
Maybe
so
we'll get a
cool.
fan art of
But
you wielding a sword. Maybe
oh,
maybe that'll happen.
we're putting it out there. We're
Yes,
manifesting,
yes.
please God.
Have
Love
fun
it.
playing The Sims. Enjoy the rest of your day. And I'm excited for the rest of what's to
Thank
come. Bye.
you. Me too. Okay. Goodbye.